Thank you, Business Insurance, for including me. We believe in inclusion, and it's an honor to be here. I heard the word meritocracy from Carol, and it reminded me of how important this whole subject is, but founded on the culture of a company. The culture has to be there to believe in meritocracy. The culture has to be established to believe in empowering people. The culture has to be there to believe that diversity is important. So it's all about establishing the culture. And in establishing that culture, I think it's critical to define the values of the company. And of course, Carol did that with meritocracy being important at Aon. So as I look at this issue that we've been grappling with all of my 50 plus years in the insurance industry, and the first issue is really attracting people to our industry. I just came back from NAPSLO, and the big part of the discussion was we can't get young people to come into the industry. How do we attract young people? Well, we have to take that much further and say, how do we get diversity in bringing in our young people? How do we include everybody that ought to be included? And I think it really gets back to selling and targeting talent. Our industry is all about talent, and I've never known another way to attract really high quality people than to think about who you need, what they have to be in terms of talent, and what they bring to the organization, and then go out and get them. Whether we're talking about filling any kind of a job, starting a new young individual in the industry, you have to convince them why this is a great industry. So we talk about the white male, but we have to convince the black male and the black woman or the other individuals of color. We have to attract more women. So it's a broad industry issue. But when you get very specific to it, I think that our clients, and you could see that from the gentleman from Exelon, our fellow employees, our colleagues, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our profession, but how we feel about our social contribution, all comes from how we address this whole issue of diversity and inclusion. So when we were all together at Aon, we talked about diversity, we talked about meritocracy, we talked about empowering people. Wouldn't be surprising to any of you that now that I've got another career, we're doing the same things. So it's the belief of how important those values are to bring a cohesive organization together. But it's not easy to build a diverse workforce in the insurance industry because the people that are highly qualified that you want to hire or that have the potential that you'd like to hire have lots of opportunities. So they have to know that going into the insurance industry and developing an expertise as a professional underwriter, professional lines underwriter, or professional lines broker, or property broker, or a casualty broker, or underwriter is a great career. A lot better than being a lawyer or a doctor. Because if you do choose that career and you develop the expertise, you're employable for life. A lot of doctors are getting out of practice because they can't make enough money anymore. And lawyers are on the street. So we have a great industry. But our clients and our people and how we feel about ourselves is really all about the culture that we bring and the diversity. When I look at diversity and building through that those set of barriers that have been there for so long, I get back to target recruiting. So when we were interested in expanding our people of color in our Aon workforce, we targeted black colleges and hired some fantastic people. Howard being one of the sources. So I think what you do is you set your mind as to what are the people you're looking for, and then you set targets. So we want to bring more women into leadership. Now, we might have overdone that. We have so many at Ryan Specialty that the males are now, white males are the minority. But it's, in fact, reboarding a great talent pool out there of women who were in the professional workforce, who stopped to have children, raise a family. There's all that talent out there. So reboarding. Wanting to bring in people of color. You have to go to the source of where these people have been educated and convince them that this is a great career. One of the other things that I think is absolutely critical and is relatively untouched, and that is not only our moral and social responsibility to be diverse and to be inclusive, but it's that to hire people with disabilities. 16.5% of people 16 through 65 with disabilities are employed. One of the big costs, the hidden cost in business, it's not, you can't see it on the income statement, is turnover. And I submit that when you hire people who really value their job and want that job, treasure that job, that they're going to stay with you. And that cost of replacing and retraining is a huge expense. But there's also a moral cost. I actually experienced it, and I'll tell you this very quickly. Back in the 80s, we took over a company that was in the north suburbs. So I had to go up there for half-time for a year and a half. It was the most boring experience of my life. There was one person of color, and she traveled all the way from the south side up to the far north suburbs. It was monochromatic. It had no real zest, fire. It was boring. And so I believe that as we bring people in who really value their job, who bring different skill sets, different experiences, different backgrounds, we are a much better team. One of the values that any great culture has to have is teamwork. And every team has to have people who know and understand their responsibility and their position. And they play it well. And a team has to be diverse. And that's where diversity and inclusion just become a statement of life. So if we want to attract a diverse workforce, we have to go out and target those people. We have to look at women who want to get back into a career, reboarding them. We have to go to the source for people of color. Go to Notre Dame and hire Hispanic Americans, and they have 20% of their student body are Latinas. Go to the black colleges and recruit that talent and convince them why the insurance opportunities are so great. And then go find people with disabilities and match them with their abilities. We look at people with disabilities and we say, well, wheelchair accessibility is difficult in this building, or whatever it might be. If we look at people for their abilities and say, well, with these abilities, they can do these jobs, we'll truly get the kind of workforce that we all need and should believe in. And so I'll just close because this is a TED Talk abbreviated. You only get 10 minutes, and I've got 22 seconds. So you have 22 seconds to endure this too. So the point I'd like to leave you with, and as I walked in earlier, I heard the leadership issue. The leaders have to get behind getting this embedded in the culture. It cannot be veneer. It's not veneer at Aon, I know that. It's not veneer in our company, and I'm sure it's not in most of your companies. But we have to do more than the minimum. In the ADA, people comply with the minimum. We can't comply with the minimum in inclusion and diversity. Thank you.